From the days of independence till present-day Africa, what level of political democracy has the continent recorded? Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this weekend edition of the program Global Insider on your Pan-African television for you, Media Africa, where we're going to zoom on the event that marked the political scene in Senegal, which led to the March 24th presidential election, and also the democracy or political democracy across the African continent. It is, however, imperative to explore the historic context, challenges, and also the successes of democracy on the African continent. It should be noted that since independence, many African nations have made remarkable political strides, especially political democracy in establishing political processes and institutions. Countries like Senegal, Ghana, South Africa, Nigeria, among nations that have conducted multiple peaceful transitions of power through democratic elections, which actually set an example for the rest of the continent. However, it is essential to recognize that the path of democracy in Africa has not been without its challenges and setbacks. Instances of political unrest, corruption, and manipulation or infiltration of electoral processes have posed major obstacles to the consolidation of practical democratic principles across the continent. Political democracy can be defined, especially in the context of Africa, as a system of governance where power is vested in the people, where exercise or who exercise their political rights and participate in decision-making processes through free, fair, and regular elections. It involves, therefore, principles such as the rule of the law, individual freedom and rights, accountability, transparency, and inclusivity. So on today's edition of Global Insight, we seek to unlock the present-day political strides in Africa, with the case study being Senegal, and we want to understand if the events or the political events that unfolded in Senegal this time around can define a part of democracy or political democracy across the African continent. Can Africa now boast of political democracy? One of the questions we'll be answering in the course of this discursive and insightful program, Global Insight, only on For You Media Africa. I won't be doing this alone, so I'll go ahead to unveil this panel of experts that will help us bring more insight into our topic for discussion. Today, looking at political democracy in Africa, can we today say that indeed the continent has attained that milestone? And with the changing dynamics across the global world, where does Africa stand? What is Africa's agenda as far as the drive for political independence is concerned? You are most welcome again, ladies and gentlemen. I will kick off, of course. I'm here in the studio with Prof. JAVANS, who is CEO and founder Legacy Holdings Limited. Hello to you, JAVANS. It's a pleasure having you this day on For You Media Africa.
Hello, Clarice. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, Africa. I'm most excited to be with you and to share my perspective with the entire African continent on the advancement that the African continent is making with regards to the advancement of democracy in the continent and prioritizing the interests of the people. I know it's going to be an exciting 2 hours ahead of us, and we are going to be learning and sharing a lot as far as democracy is concerned in our continent. Thank you very much.
Indeed, and thank you. That is, of course, the objective of this discursive program, for us to exchange, to share knowledge with one set objective to change narratives positively across the African continent. Let me take you now to the North African nation of Algeria. We're being joined by Professor LAEED ZAGHLAMI, who is actually a university professor in Algiers University. Hello to you, Professor. It's a pleasure having you for the first time, of course, on the Pan-African television. It is for you, Media Africa.
It's my pleasure too. Can you hear me?
Sure, Professor. You are welcome to the program.
Yes, it's my pleasure too. I couldn't believe my eyes that I am today on the screen in your group. That was pure coincidence on our flight from I would say, Moscow to Rostov, then to Crimea. Here we are. I am so pleased to be there with you. And of course, my regards to all people with the panel, all your guests.
And thank you so much, of course, for accepting to share insight on this very important topic that we are analyzing this day. Let's move now to the United States of America, being joined by Dr. Eddie Eric, who is a program officer at the Solidarity Center, Africa Department. Hello to you, Dr. Eddie. A pleasure having you once more.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be with you, Clarice. And greetings also to Professor LAEED, who I meeting for the first time. And it's my pleasure also to see in you my brother from Cameroon. Greetings, and we're happy to be here.
Thank you so much for giving importance to this rendezvous, Dr. Eddie Eric, and we're looking forward to us having the best insightful program with the set goal of seeing Africa move forward practically. And we also welcome Presley EKANE, international relations expert. Hello to you, EKANE, and thanks for joining this day on the program Global Insight. Hello to you, Princely. If you can hear me, you're welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you, Clarice, for having me on your program this afternoon. And it's a unique pleasure to have with me the other co-panelists, especially Professor LAEED, first time sharing a discursive panel with him. And my warm regards to Dr. Eddie and Mr. MBOFUNG. I look forward to an exciting debate this afternoon.
And thank you for respecting this rendezvous, Presley EKANE. We will start out by analyzing the keywords on our topic this day. Of course, we're talking about democracy and, of course, political democracy. Let me kick off this discursive moment with you, Mr. EKANE. In your own perspective, what do you define as political democracy in the African context?
Thank you for having me once more. I would go straight away to say that, well, democracy, in my understanding, is power which is vested in the people or in the population of the people or on the population of a state. And it's I do not think I'm very much of the opinion that the does not have a static definition, and it's very interesting that you contextualize the term. Within the geographical limitations of Africa, and I would say it's as an old notion. It's power which is vested on the people or on the population of the state. In the context of Africa, I would not limit myself to the transition of power within the executive realm. It goes beyond that. It's also the functioning of social institution, the election administration, the conduct of elections or election administration. peaceful transition of power within the African governmental structure. And we've seen it in the heydays, and we've seen it most recently with a number of countries in Africa. I think when we evolve with the debate, there I would certainly have more to say.
Thank you for the introductory statement. To you, Dr. Eddie Erika, we are looking at this political democracy. It is imperative to understand the indicators of this political democracy in Africa.
Clarice, it's a great thing that you start the debate today with clarifying this notion. I think what I want to do is to caution, and again, one more time, call on our observers or political actors in Africa to make sure that we do not equate political democracy to this notion of elections only. And I think my brother EKANE was very right on point to indicate 1990s with what we have called a new wave of the rebirth of democracy on the African continent. We see that, especially talking about what happened at the summit of La Baule, the whole question was about, how well we put in the respective, constitutions in sub-Saharan Africa, the term limits. So we look at that one as one of the key indicators. However, after the 1990s, the mid-1990s, we find out that, this indicator is actually not holding as much. And then we started talking about, more of political alternative. So I believe that, some of the indicators that, we want to look at in here, number one is what are the systems that, what we are putting in place. When it comes to elections themselves, as we talk about, free and fair elections, what are the key indicators that, we put in this notion of a free and fair? How many people go to vote? How many people are registered to vote? How many people, have access to the polling places without intimidation? How free the process itself is. When it comes to counting the ballots, who are the people in place agreed upon to count announce the results? Even another indicator, Clarice, will also be the whole thing that but we see nowadays in most African countries after an election, when some candidates will call the potential winner to congratulate them, can also be used as an indicator, because it contributes to a peaceful transition of power or peaceful resolution of those elections. And then the last thing that I want to probably indicate in here also is the inclusive participation of people. It's a very, very, very key. To what extent the people, regardless of the social status, regardless of the geographical location, whether in rural areas, are allowed and fully the political process. These are some of the indicators that I will bring to our listeners' attention.
And thank you for the precision, Dr. Eddie Eric. It's about the inclusivity. It's about indicators that will actually assure, reveal that the African population is at the center of every governance decision taken, especially by the political actors. And it is always a very imperative to contextualize the concept to see how we can equated to the current political development across the continent Africa. Prof. JAVANS, we are looking at this political democracy, and our case study is Senegal. We're looking at the development that occurred in the political country of the West African nation. So the question holistically, what do you think the African continent has learned from this development in Senegal, and can Senegal alone give us the right to be categorical to say that Africa has made strides in political democracy, especially in contemporary society?
Definitely, I will say that when we follow up what's happening in Senegal, especially 10 days before the election, we'll see that a lot of things had happened before the 10 days or post the 10 days to the election and within the 10 days to the day of the election that actually put Senegal on the map as far as democratic practices are concerned. We first of all saw a situation whereby the incumbent who was not supposed or who is not standing for the election tried to postpone the election to a later date, and the people protested. And in that situation, we saw an important vital role from the judiciary coming up to uphold the interests of the people. And the role of the judiciary in such a scenario indicated that when we are talking about democracy, we know that the judiciary actually have a vital role, an independent judiciary, of course, have a vital role to play in any democratic principle. And that role is to ensure that the interests of the people are protected with respect to the constitution that governs the process. Because every African nation has a constitution that lays down democratic principles that are supposed to be upheld under normal circumstances unless otherwise stated. So in the situation of Senegal, we saw how the judiciary had to come in, insisted that the constitution of the land should be respected with regards to elections. And despite the fact that the judiciary came in, we noticed that some key figures of the opposition, talking about Osman Sonko, he was banned from running, and him, in the spirit of democracy and in the light of respecting the interests of the people, he did not see the need to boycott as it has always been the case in many African countries. He saw that he could nominate somebody that maybe share his same ideology for the people of Senegal to run in for election under the flagship of the party he was supposed to be representing. And at the end, it boils down to just one point: the will of the people was respected. First, the main opposition that was seemingly the threat to the system that has been designed to obstruct the interests of the people, it was the main opposition had a candidate, and the people went out and they supported the candidate, and we were not disappointed with the results, because the results were counted in real time and the results were proclaimed. And we saw how just within, as the results were gradually being proclaimed, we saw other opposition candidates had already turned in to be accepting the verdict of the tentative result, up to the level that the candidate of the ruling party finally picked up his phone and then called the opposition to congratulate him.
And that depicts some political maturity.
Absolutely, which shows that Africa is moving towards the right direction as far as democratic elections are concerned. We did not see anybody carrying his interests over the interests of the country or over the interests of the people. It was all about the people of Senegal, and it was all about upholding the constitution that governs the people of Senegal. With that, I can say that Senegal is teaching Africa a new rhythm as far as democratic elections are concerned.
Indeed, thank you for that, Prof. JAVANS, which aligns, of course, to the question that people have been asking, if the political aspirations of some politicians in Africa have actually been placed first before the aspirations of a country as a whole. And I think Senegal and other countries that have demonstrated that there is already change coming forth. With Professor LAEED, we want to answer the major question for discussion this day. It's about if the Africa can now boast of political democracy, with the Senegal situation being a case study. Professor LAEED, you want to give more insight on this pertinent Senegal, and also the perspective of political democracy across the African continent as a whole.
Thank you, Clarice, once more. Thank you to my brothers with you. Of course, to answer your question, it's too early to answer but even difficult to predict the future. But the enthusiasm is there. The sense of relief and euphoria is strongly present within the minds of people in whole Africa, and particularly in Senegal. The victory of Bassirou is as the president, is actually the victory of those who were deprived, who were silenced, who were despised, who were marginalized, more dramatically, who were jailed. So the president, freshly released from jail, of course, the boxes have spoken, and it is, for me, it's a victory of democracy, the victory of liberty, the victory of sovereignty. And today, these days, Senegal is showing the way to those who always excel in rigging. And we have so many examples throughout the continent. Senegal has paved the way to peaceful and swift shift to democratic values and peaceful solution. I want just to remind our brothers, and of course, the first word of the elected president, he said that Senegal, there won't be a dramatic change in his policy, but he said, he pledged that Senegal will remain a reliable ally of all foreign partners, as long as they respect the principle of equality between one of the example or the measure he will take, he will ask to implement the program which include Senegal exit from CFA zone. The BRIC is within ourselves, he said, and with our governance practice, as well as our relation with partner, whoever may be. But anyhow, the partnership between Senegal and France, as an example, is a good one, but it needs to be revisited, because he said that we have to work on more win-win approach and on equitable position and cooperation. Senegal also, he added that Senegal will review certain trade agreements, like fishery agreement with France, on the defense agreement, with the aim of highly protecting the interests of Senegalese people. As I said, with the question of exit zone, he said it is not right, it is not logical that out of 55 countries, only 50 countries of Africa, only 14 have their own currency. So there is a need for currency, monetary, I would say, sovereignty. And here we speak about, of course, we speak about important source of financing, and when we should, he said that we are indebted to people and to the rest of the world. There is a level that you must be able to activate more fast towards, I would say, internal development, and this sovereignty cannot be renounced. It will be asserted, because of sovereignty of a country must be totally sovereign, not half of it. But of course, we have to ask question after the euphoria of his election. The main question is, will this young, energetic President Faye, although he's inexperienced, will be able to translate his popular support, which comes thanks to his role as proxy for Sonko in action. Although he vowed, I would say, he promised, he pledged to fight corruption and increase the economic opportunity for Senegal, increasing, unfortunately, disaffected youth. On foreign policy, he has a more wild card. He's a strong advocate for African issues on international stage, while, of course, remaining dependent on the West. But he said he wants to reform the West African regional bloc, ECOWAS. In other words, he is not pleased with the present ECOWAS activities and achievement. More importantly, he hinted that he will, of course, shift tie from French, I would say, colonial power of France, as the time when Paris' influence in West Africa is already dwindling. In reaction to Faye's discourse, the president of France said he promised that he can do his best. France, he said Macron will do its best to stop this imbalanced world, and it will seek innovative solution that avoids driving a wedge between the North and the South. But Macron democratic, I would say, diplomatic engagement will suffice if major powers are engaged in practice that still obstruct global South country development. In the end, I would say there is really a North country hypocrisy and double standard practice. This problem is compounded by the North, as I said, the global North hypocrisy, ignoring the calls of course, of the South for mutual cooperation based on respect of independence and on sovereignty. Africa is recovering slowly but surely. It has to recover surely its dignity and authority. Time has come to exert its power on the world affair and should not be left out of the stream. Thank you very much, Kalaris. This is what I want to say.
Thank you so much, Professor LAEED, for the insight on the topic for discussion this day, which has touched on so many aspects. Let me continue this next round with you, Dr. Eddie Eric. We've listened keenly to some points highlighted by Professor LAEED in his presentation regarding the development in Senegal and the African continent as a whole. It's about charting a new path for Africa, maintaining Africa's dignity and Africa's sovereignty. I would like if you comment especially on the aspect of foreign policy as far as the political decisions of the country and continent is concerned. Dr. Eddie, taking from the presentation Professor LAEED just made right now.
Thank you, Clarisse. You know, during the campaign or in, let's say, the years leading to all the successive events that we saw in Senegal that even led to Ousmane Sonko and the recently rated. Some of the issues that were raised included Senegal's posture in the international arena. Let us not forget that Senegal, under Macky Sall, has joined the group of ECOWAS leaders to impose heavy sanctions on Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger following the military coups in those countries. Worse than that, they also approved of closing their ports. For some countries like Mali, as I know, the port of Senegal, where Dakar was actually the entry point for many of their products, and closing that kind of deprived those countries of conventions. Landlocked countries, should not be prevented from having access to the sea. I think these are some of the international issues that, in terms of a foreign policy, that the new leadership in Senegal will have to tackle and deal with. We are hearing from numerous young people on social media and other sources of information about, as young as they are, if the current president Bassirou, the new president, who is going to be sworn into office on the 3rd of April, will have the clout enough to remove Senegal and have a strong position when it comes to dealing with France, when it comes to dealing with the ECOWAS countries, and even helping to change course in the ways in which ECOWAS have been dealing with the issues of stability and even enforcing the protocols on democracy in the region. And I believe that this is one of the challenges as well at that level. Of course, the big question that Professor LAEED also levied is the question of the French CFA, which remained for the past 20 years and more the vivid topic. We'll have to question. One thing we should not avoid, and then we're going to be resting on that, is that Senegal remains a vital partner from the point of view of France, which means that, but without backing that, we need to be aware, as the late president of Senegal, Thomas Sankara, said, the more we fight to liberate ourselves, the more they will also on the side, fight to keep us, in this situation of enslavement. So build on those things. I do believe that both internally and externally, as far as foreign policy is concerned, Senegal, does have, this challenge and duty to regain its position, its image within the sub-region, in West Africa, but also within Africa when it comes to conflict resolution in countries. Macky Sall did a very bad job when it comes to those things, and we hope to see this new president, as young as he is, leading Senegal in that other direction. Clarisse, these are the two things that I want to point in there. Maybe the last one I want to mention, and to that was asked earlier in terms of lessons learned. I think one of the lessons that what the Senegal case is sending to the African international community is this notion of the power of the people in resisting leaders attempted to manipulate constitutions. Because anything else, we have had the case of Liberia. Way back, in January, we witnessed a peaceful transition of power following the October election that President Joseph Boakai won. Before Senegal, we have Ghana that have also shown excellent path of records of political transitions. We have Cabo Verde. Even in the Gambia, those things happen. So my point here is, we are seeing a lot of attempts by a sitting president to capture state power by manipulating constitutions, Côte d'Ivoire, and currently in what is happening in Togo. In Senegal, there was an attempt to do that. The people rose, and the people were able to push back against that, and we had what we see in today. I think this is one of the lessons that we can also capture from the situation in Senegal. Thank you.
Thank you. Of course, the lessons captured from the situation in Senegal, and we want to also look at the maturity of the outgoing President Macky Sall in heeding to the call of the people. I think that is very imperative in present-day society. Mr. EKANE, we are analyzing political stakes across the continent and focusing on the term democracy, which you defined earlier, contextualizing it, and still taking a case study of Senegal. Now, how can we maybe redefine or reunite principles of democracy that will actually wipe out instances of violent demonstrations, especially across political lines? Because with the current changes, we see new countries carving their spheres of interest or influence across Africa. Do you think the fact that alteration in constitution for the benefit or to maintain the sovereignty of a country, it is maybe impeding a democratic process, political democratic process of a country, or sometimes is it necessary? And if maybe to add to this question, what do you think is the best principle to put in place that can warrant changes in the case where the sovereignty or the interest of an autonomous state is at stake? The question is directed to you, Mr. EKANE.
Yeah, thank you once more, and it's been a pure pleasure to listen to my co-panelists following up to this debate. Firstly, I would give a categorical no about altering constitutions, because when you alter constitutions, then you roll back a people to a past that they don't want, because the constitution is a guiding path of a nation, and a constitution is not it's not the preserve of a system or of a person. It's a guiding it's a roadmap, also it's a guiding principle to democracy, if I should say so, to a nation. But it's very important to. I want to lean on Dr. Edi's point earlier when he mentioned in his attempt or in his definition of democracy. I was very impressed when he talked about indicators, because for far too long with Africans have focused a lot on the peaceful transition of leadership as the main element of democracy. No, we should be able to look at indicators in order to understand if we are surfing on democratic waters, the way elections are conducted before, during, and after, and what happens in between that process. It's all now in the particular case of Senegal, there is a lot of euphoria, as there's been in Ghana, as there's been in Nigeria, as there's been in Liberia, because the population of the citizens of Africa have been sick and tired to see leaders and leaderships or systems that have been there for 40, 50 years, that they are so focused on seeing only new faces. But it's not limited to that, because seeing new faces coming and going while the civil society is not working, while roads are not built, while the systems are not functioning, while the education is not serving a people, then there is a big problem. So the focus should shift from just seeing one leader comes and one leader succeeding another. We have to focus on the leadership, on the conduct of leadership, the conduct of governance, and how that trickles down to the different components of society. I think then that is when we would have a satisfactory mark sheet for our African governments. And in the particular case of Senegal, it's a pleasure to see a buoyant young man, 44 years, acceding to power, but it's also a challenge. It's too simplistic to talk about. I mean, to lay down so many reforms at the same time. But the challenges are there. There has been diplomatic ties with Western countries, in particular France. It's too simplistic to say, okay, we'll kick away the France CFA. There is a lot of job to be done.
Sure.
There is a lot of job to be done on a diplomatic level, and it doesn't take only Senegal to discuss the question of the CFA. So on the sub-regional level or on the regional level, there needs to be leadership discussion. There needs to be cohesion in discussing these issues. On a security level, a peaceful transition of power in Senegal is not enough when there is a problem in the Sahel region. So on the security level, there's job on the table for the new leadership in Senegal. So there are these kinds of discussions that would be of essence in Senegal. In not only Senegal, of course, we're happy to see that there is a power change, but the power should have content. It's not. We are satisfied to have a leader, but we would be unsatisfied to have a leader who is pushed by a wave of populism. We want a job done in these countries. And we believe, because he comes with the buoyancy of youth, and we believe that we're giving him a chance, because older people have been there for 60 years and they've probably achieved little or nothing. So why not give him a chance and see what he has to do? But it would be a very huge trap. It would be such a big trap to just outline so many things that he wants to do, when in practice it would not be very easy. But we wish him well.
Indeed, wishing the new leadership well in Senegal. And while you were analyzing, I think of there was a debate we held regarding political rhetorics, how politicians sometimes have very captivating electoral promises, but when it comes to delivering, it becomes problematic, which takes me to the next question directed to you, Prof. JAVANS. We saw the promises, of course, in a professor's presentation, and also the facts already highlighted by you all regarding what the new leadership of Senegal wants to do as he takes over the mantle of leadership in that country. And we earlier talked about the indicators of democracy. We highlighted inclusivity, even the rule of law, end to corruption, and even, of course, certain things that will lead to the fulfillment, you know, wind down. It will wind down to a real practical development witnessed on the ground. Let's analyze these aspects of the financial independence of countries. You know, there's a political revolution. I call it a political revolution across the African continent at the moment. And with the new leadership of Senegal being a vibrant youth, what many people have been advocating for in Africa, to see a change in the leadership. So what do you think are the right